Hello and welcome to DC Elseworlds. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris, and we're here to talk Flashpoint, the 2011 event that has really become so popular in its 12 years as an event. I think that's one thing that amazes me is we talked about it with Rebirth. The whole Thawne going back to kill Barry's mom is relatively new in the canon, right? It's a Rebirth was like a 2009 2010 story, and um that really is now like a staple that only 3 years later or 4 years later in the real world they use that whole thing in the Flash TV show. It has become cemented in his mom dying as part of the Flash movie coming out. Like, it has just become part of his origin now when it wasn't originally. So I do find that really interesting. And this Flashpoint story has really, I don't know, taken on a life of its own with how big I think it has become. And this is, of course, written by legendary Jeff Johns, and the art was by Andy Kubert. I think the art's very good in this book.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful book. I have the absolute edition and I love this. Every time I read this, I am shocked how fast I read it. It's such a quick read. It's 5 issues. And once you get to the big moments, oh my goodness, Thomas Wayne Batman with Barry, Thomas Wayne almost killing him when he gets to the Batcave. Stop saying Bruce, that because he's so traumatized that he saw his son die. Just the whole thing is just unbelievable. And one small selfish choice unravels the whole timeline. That is such a powerful idea. And such a beautiful book. Such a beautiful book. There's so many scenes in this book that I would argue are top five, top 10 Flash moments, and it's one storyline, Jordan.
Yeah, I know I said I was going to read all these tie-ins. I fell 16 short out of 60 some
That's
issues.
pretty admirable.
I got really close. I got really close. I just couldn't. I did have a lot going on too, like this weekend, holiday weekend, going to see my parents, going to see my wife's parents, and you know, so and trying to watch Crisis and all this stuff too. So it was a try. I tried my best, couldn't do it. I read most of, I think, the best ones.
What was your favorite one?
Well, I'll get to that. The ones I did not read, just for clarity's sake here, I only read one issue of Frankenstein and the Creatures of the Unknown, which is pretty much Creatures Commando. So if you're looking for Creature Commando stuff, characters from the cartoon, that has a few of them, but that has 3 issues. So I have 2 of those left. I have The Outsider issue 3 left, World of Flashpoint 1 through 3, Hal Jordan issue 3, Emperor Aquaman 1, 2, and 3, and Wonder Woman and the Furies issue 3 that I have not read. And I have not read Lois Lane and the Resistance 3, Project Superman 3, or Kid Flash Lost 1 through 3. So I didn't get to those. What I did read was all the other ones. I have a list here of which ones I really enjoyed. So ones I really loved, and I tweeted this one out too, Dead Man and the Flying Graysons. That was a really cool 3 issue arc. So much so that like Dick Grayson ends up being like Dr. Fate. Like it's really off the wall story there, but I really enjoyed that. I'm a Green Lantern fan, so I actually really like the Abin Sur um, Green Lantern arc. I read all 3 of those issues. That was great. Citizen Cold 1 through 3 was really great as well. Um, One thing I think that made that work for me a lot was seeing Captain Cold being a hero, but he's still not actually a hero. He's kind of putting on a front. He's trying to kind of dupe Central City into thinking he's a real hero, um, and hoping that nobody catches who he is underneath. And then I liked the Batman 3 issue arc well. So those are the tie-ins I really loved. Oh, I'll also shout out Booster Gold 44 through 47. That's a Flashpoint tie-in where Booster Gold was doing something else and kind of came back in time and then was thrown into the Flashpoint world and had to kind of deal with some of the ramifications of what was going on there and trying to discover what's going on. So, and Booster Gold, as people should know, is one of my favorite characters here. So, really dug that. This issue, by the way, this cover of 47 is just on
Th-
fire.
That is one of the better covers I've seen. It just Booster Gold looks serious too, which is so weird, and
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. I actually was able to read Flashpoint Beyond in its entirety, and that,
That's arriving tomorrow for me, so
oh, okay,
I will have the trade tomorrow.
it is pretty fun. It is pretty fun. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really captivating. I thought it was really interesting. There's some twists that you don't see coming. They play around with the Flashpoint world a little bit more. And that's my only complaint about Flashpoint is if you don't read some of those tie-ins, you're really missing out on this huge world. I mean, the insane amount of work they had to do just to put up all these little details in the world. In fact, in my Absolute Edition, they have two things that are really cool. They have a map of Flashpoint with a war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, the Amazons and the Atlanteans, and then they have the timeline of Flashpoint, and it's very helpful. It's a resource that I really enjoy.
Um, some of the tie-ins I didn't really dig was like the Lois and the Resistance ones. Like, there's some interesting characters there, like Canterbury Cricket, but I didn't like that. I didn't really like the Outsiders that much, or the Secret Seven. I didn't really dig some of those. Deathstroke was an alright one. Didn't really care for that. But you're right. If you read Flashpoint, you're reading, and this is kind of a plus for it as well as a negative, I guess. But the plus for it is if you're reading Flashpoint, it is a Flash based story.
Hmm.
Those 5 issues, very Flash focused. If you want to read the tie-ins and kind of get more sense of the world, you're going to get more information on, Project Superman or Thomas Wayne, or uh, you're going to get more information on uh, where some of these characters are at in the world. But if you're just reading these 5 issues, I think it is. If you read all 64 issues or whatever it is, I think you might not look back at this event as fondly as if you just read the 5.
I agree with that. I
Because some of these add-ons are totally unnecessary and totally off the wall.
I would say pick your favorites, find the ones you're interested in, and
Characters you like, or
yep, because the Thomas Wayne Batman stuff is fun. Cobblepot being his little assistant guy, the casino. There's a lot of cool stuff with that. Martha Wayne being the Joker. There's a lot of cool stuff with that. But I will tell you that this is the biggest scaled story in DC Comics, including Crisis. I think this is the Lord of the Rings of DC Comics. And Flash is Frodo, basically.
yeah, that's an interesting viewpoint for that. But yeah, I think if you're looking at all the tie-ins and stuff, I mean, this is a huge, huge story, and I think part of the reason for that is because you can go off the wall. You can just be like, let's write this, totally off the wall, not connect it to main continuity. It just kind of has to feature some of the stuff from Flashpoint, and you can run with it and do whatever you want. Is I think one thing that probably helps with this, and to have so many tie-ins too, is that you can have somebody be like, I'm going to write a Gorilla Grodd comic for Flashpoint, and they have a great Gorilla Grodd story. I do like that comic. It's a little too brutal at times, but it is good. And then literally he shows up in like one panel of the main Flashpoint story. But you understand if you've read more than that what he's doing there and stuff, but it's also not needed. So you can get away with more tie-ins on that kind of stuff than some of these other events where I think it's all trying to build to one thing. And plus with it being an alternate universe, you can really go wild and do whatever you want with it
Hmm.
compared to some of these other um events. So yeah, I think it is a pretty large scope of a story. But I do really like the focus on Barry in those five main issues. I was kind of surprised it was only five. I thought it was going to be six because a lot of events are six. It wasn't until I was really sitting down reading it that, like, before I started reading it, that I was looking at how long I have to take to read all these that I realized it was only five.
Well, I read the first four issues in one sitting, and then I got interrupted, and I said, "Okay, I'll come back to this." And I read it the next day. Kind of wish I just read it in one sitting. The first time I read this, I read it in one sitting and couldn't believe I read it in one sitting.
Hmm.
It is, I recommend two things with this. First is just go with it. If you don't know um, Element Woman, if you don't know the Shazam family, just go with it. It doesn't change the story if you don't know. Just go with it. If you're not big in Cyborg, go with it. Because there's so much. It's kind of like going down the rabbit hole. There's so many things to just being the more you get into DC Comics, the more these little things are going to stay with you, and you're going to notice. So this is a great story. The second thing I recommend is go back to this story after you've read more DC Comics. Go back to the story after you're a bigger Flash fan, after you're a bigger Batman fan, when you read some Justice League stuff. And I think you'll have such a great appreciation for all of the different things they did with this. And Thomas Wayne Batman is such a genius idea, and the way he is written in this is so fantastic because he's got depth to him. He's not just a one note character. Yes, he is the Batman that kills, and he's rough and he's brooding like Bruce. But like Bruce, when you get through to him, there's a lot more there, and there's a lot of pain and trauma that it's just a different way to think about what happened in Crime Alley. It's so fantastic. You guys need to read this book. If you don't read this book, you're missing out on a lot of DC Comics.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, as to be clear again, I'm not sure how many people listened to some of the previous episodes, but I had never read this before. I had watched um the movie, the cartoon, and had never actually read the actual comic. I bought the comic last July, kind of sat on my shelf, and I was like, I'll get to it at some point. And we started talking about doing it for the show, and I was reading after Rebirth. I started reading the kind of Road to Flashpoint, so I was like, oh, this will be perfect. I'll read the Road to Flashpoint stuff, and then I'll read all the tie-ins, and I still will. I think I'm going to. My plan is here that once I'm over the weekend or whatever to finish it. Finish these couple issues I have left here, and because it's kind of hard to read them in like the order, if you know what I mean. Like, there's times where I was like really flying through one, and then I get to a storyline I'm not digging as much, and I just didn't want to keep reading that one. I was like, I want to go read this, this other storyline I was just reading instead. And at times, what that led to is like I got really into the Green Lantern Abin Sur one, and then once I got to issue 3, I realized they were at the Wonder Woman um, Aquaman battle at the end because they had broken up where the third issue is supposed to be, and I was like, crap, I got to go back and read some of this other stuff. So yesterday I was like, I'm not going to get through all 20 some left I have, so I'm going to just read 3 through 5 a Flashpoint main, and then I can go back and just read whatever I want, and it'll make sense. I know where the whole story goes. I know where it takes place at. It'll, still make ultimately a lot of sense. But so I recommend that too. You don't have to read them in the order. If you just read the tie-ins and you want to know, you're really digging, Dead Man and the Flying Graysons, then just read all three of those and then move on to something else if you want. It's totally whatever. It doesn't make that big of a difference. But like I read all those booster golds in a row yesterday. Um, was it
And it's
yesterday?
not going
Yeah,
anywhere. It's not going
yeah.
anywhere. So you can always be like, you know what? You're not sure what you're in the mood for. Well, this is a perfect time to read a Flashpoint crossover, a Flashpoint tie-in issue. That's not going anywhere. It's a project that you can kind of do at your own pace, and I think it's just going to make you enjoy Flashpoint a little bit more. So I I want to ask you, what was your favorite twist on Flashpoint? What was your favorite twist?
Like my favorite, like change in the
Yeah.
timeline.
Hmm.
That's a good question. Because I don't like. It's tough for me to say because I don't know if I want to say I like it because some of this stuff is so dark, so
Very
dark.
dark. Hmm.
But maybe I would say I really dug in Dead Man and the Flying Graysons. If we're talking about that time frame, um, I really like Doctor Fate. I really like Dick Grayson, kind of having that work out to where he sees the helmet after Kent Nelson gets killed, and it's kind of implied that he takes up the mantle of Doctor Fate. I liked that, um, and the fact that he was not with Bruce at that point, right? Because Bruce is uh, never survived, of course. So I don't know because I think some of these plot lines are so much darker. I don't know if I have one I like better. I mean, I do find it intriguing, the Thomas Wayne stuff. Um, one part that really stood out to me is when they're in the Shazamili's, house, and everyone's starting to say, "All right, we'll join in," right? And Batman doesn't want to go, and he says Bruce would have went, right? Is what Flash says,
That's a
and
good
then that
line.
makes that makes Thomas be like, "All right, I'm going," and I think that is kind of showing you the differences between the two Batmen. Um, that Bruce, even though it doesn't seem like it, Bruce is a little bit more hopeful, right? Than Thomas is at that point because it's totally different losing your parents than losing your son, right? Like it's a totally different thing, and I can see why Thomas Wayne is more dark and willing to kill and stuff is because he lost his child in front of him. It's different than Bruce, who lost his parents to guns and says, I'm going to make sure that doesn't keep happening. Thomas is more for revenge, right? Thomas is
Hmm.
more for going out there and this world. He's totally lost everything. He lost his wife because his wife went crazy due to the loss of the child and became the Joker. So I that line really stood out to me. So it's probably not my favorite change, but it really drove home the point of the two different Batman.
Yeah, other than Thomas Wayne, Project Superman is kind of the big one. And I love when they break him out and they're like, this is the, yeah. And he sees the sun for the first time and he goes, oh, there goes your hero. You're the one who's going to save us. He just flies off. And then at the end, the final battle, he comes back and Flash goes,
Hmm.
told you, I knew it. And I love the idea of Superman having to figure it out. I think it would have been a little weird if, you know what, he just kind of knew, okay, I'm going to fight with you guys now. I think he was freaking out. That's him experiencing his powers for the first time. It's him seeing the sun for the first time. It's so, dude, it's so incredible. It's just, and the idea that that disaster happened from him, the world, speaking of hope, ended up being the worst thing that ever happened to Metropolis. And it's just horrible, and the tragedy that that is. There's so many layers to that story, and I think it is the biggest accomplishment they had was giving me a different version of Superman that looked so different, that acted so different, but was still Kal-El. It was really awesome because they could have made him very easily evil Superman, and I think
Injustice or something.
right, and I think it was the nuance that was in the story was very much seen with Project Superman.
My least favorite change is probably, I think, Subject 2 is supposed to be Crypto because it talks about
Oh, I
K9.
hate that. Yes.
I hate that change.
Yes, I hate that
You
change
see the
too. And you see the
skeleton.
yes, it's
No,
horrible.
thank you. Hate
Honestly,
that.
I'm surprised that's not more of a controversy. You kill the dog, you really lose a lot of people.
Yeah, it's all reset though. He survives, right? But um yeah, I didn't really like that part. And I guess subject 3 would have been Kara. They never really show her, but they talk
No,
about there
that's
being 3
interesting.
subjects.
It could have been Zod.
Oh,
Uh,
true.
but I uh I didn't like the Wonder Woman stuff. I didn't really like how she wore Mara's helmet. I I
That whole thing that started the war is like the total worst stuff of Flashpoint. It's probably my least favorite stuff. Is I get what they were trying to go for here, but it really just comes down to, I mean, people playing politics because what was it, like one of somebody frames the Atlanteans for killing, or like the Themyscirans for like killing the um for killing somebody, whatever. Like it's kind of convoluted, and what happens here is that then the marriage between those two kind of goes south, and then he gets with Mara, and then she dies, and then you know, it just created like this whole thing of where they were actually going to get hitched, they actually fell in love, they were really good, and then just like one thing kind of ruined the whole thing. And it's like, just have a conversation. That's kind of like the most like confusing stuff when it comes to some of the stuff in
it
TV
was
shows and
so
movies.
out
Like
of character.
just have a conversation.
So I'm not so upset with Aquaman because okay, Aquaman doesn't have an established mythos in the popular culture. Nobody before Jason Momoa, nobody cared about the character, and if they did, okay, cool, you're one of five. But
That's my dad. My dad liked Aquaman
cool.
before Jason
More
Momoa.
more power to him. But it's so out of character for Diana. It's for Wonder Woman. It is just unbelievably out of character, and to have that much lacking of perspective that you would have a world war because of a stupid little thing. It just I didn't like it. I thought it was petty. I thought it was uninspiring, and I thought it was really. I think she gets the worst treatment of the characters in this because without Superman, she's really the most powerful force on the planet. She really is. I guess Aquaman is too. Is this he would be the second most powerful force, but I don't know. I didn't like that much either. But you needed a war. You needed a war to do it, and I didn't see a better path towards two forces. Because if you have Superman tied up, someone else has to be in there,
Hmm.
and they have to be just as powerful as each other. And I think Aquaman is the closest thing you're going to get to Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, they both can control their whole like their own nation pretty much
Hmm.
too. Um, that kind of spring out of nowhere for them, right? They're not revealed to the world until like right before the war, pretty much. So it's, you can kind of do a lot of stuff with that. Let me just share some of these pictures I took here. So we have this. This is from one of the last,
Hmm.
I think, issue 5 when they're starting to run on, or issue 4 or whatever when they're starting to do it. But it's, I just like this art of Flash leading, the Shazam or Captain Thunder, as they call him there. And so in this case, all the kids add up to one man. Is that what it is?
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't. Confession: I haven't read any Shazam. I like the movies. Never really read
Well,
anything.
in Shazam, in like the regular comics of Shazam, each one of them is a member of the family, but in
Right.
this, it's like uh I think they all fold into one guy.
That's interesting. I do like the tiger. I do like the tiger concept, or the house cat tiger. I like that.
Mhm.
I you look, I Shazam's a character I've only really read in Justice League comics. I haven't really read a lot of the Shazam stuff, so I was a little. That's a little where you go. Hey, just go with it with the story. But I love the glowing red eyes for Thomas Wayne Batman. I freaking love it. And Cyborg was great in this. Cyborg, we need more Cyborg in general. Cyborg was great in this. Do you want a
Yeah,
juice box?
Jeff Johns is a big proponent of that character. He's the one that makes him like a Justice League member. You
Hmm.
know, he's really kind of changed the trajectory of that character. I'm trying to find the panel in issue 4 here. There's a panel where I think it shows when they kill Billy off, where she like is depowering the family, and I think you see them all the kids. Yeah, all of the kids come out of the Captain Thunder. So
Okay, so it is like that.
instead of them each having their own Shazam character, they are all Captain Thunder, which is weird. It makes me wonder like who's piloting it, like
Yeah,
who's the
who's
one in
brain?
charge of the yeah,
Because in that case, I think you'd want Eugene or Freddie.
right, right. Then we have this great thing, the beginning of chapter 3, which is Barry just totally burnt to a crisp,
Mm.
mummified almost, right? He's got all the tape on as his original experiment didn't work.
Yeah, and you see the reverse flash shoot next to it that comes out of his ring, and
Yeah, yeah. So he says that means Reverse Flash did all of this. We find out Barry did. So does Reverse Flash just find him and then taunts him with the suit in the ring, or is that
I took
something?
it as that. I took it
Yeah.
as reverse flash is like, ooh, I get to mess with this guy, and it's gonna lead to this big moment where I get to kill him. I think I think he wanted to savor
Hmm.
this moment, and he needed to wait until he remembered. That was the big thing. He needed that torture before he killed him. And one of the things I love about this issue is Flash is like, okay, I need to go right back out there. He's like, you're crazy, you're insane, and he's like, no, I need to go back out there. And then the lightning bolt strikes, and he's still wrapped up and mummified, and he catches him off the edge of Wayne Manor. That is,
Here it is right here. Yeah, this is the panel for it. If there is a moment that I like audibly clapped and like cheered, it is this moment here when he finally gets his powers back and he catches Thomas and he pretty much says like told you, and Thomas is like, all right, you are the fastest man alive, but it doesn't prove the rest of your story. Right? That's what he says. But I just really like this moment of him, catching him just in time.
it actually reminds me of a scene in The Flash where Iris jumps off the building and unlocks the
Yes, to save
Medikov,
Barry.
and
Yeah.
then he catches her on the way down. That's what it's reminiscent of. But I just thought that issue was so much fun. It was just
Yeah, I think issue 3 is the best.
well, the heart of Flashpoint is Thomas Wayne and Barry Allen. That's the heart of the
Hmm.
story. That's where you get most of the story development.
And then this is one that you pointed out that you really liked. It's
Hmm.
Cyborg and Batman meeting in the first issue. Here,
And it's like,
what was it that really stood out to you for this one?
well, so Cyborg catches the bad guy or good guy or whatever that Thomas Wayne was dropping in the alley, and he goes, you know how I found you?" And he goes, "You know, you're basically a supercomputer. It's not hard for you to find anyone." He goes, No, they always come here. They always fall off here. And it showed you the pattern of Thomas Wayne and that he's been killing people for a while. And this it's a great confrontation between Cyborg hoping that Batman can be a hero and Batman being lost at this point to the battle. Uh, this Batman doesn't give an F. He doesn't care. He's lost all ability to care. And that's so important to the story because the second he knows that Bruce can come back, that this world can be erased, the second he cares. And that's the entire point with Thomas Wayne. That's where his heart is. This story gives Thomas Wayne his heart back after he lost it.
Then we get Thomas Wayne killing Reverse Flash. Now does this stick? Reverse Flash is still in the comics, so I'd say no.
I don't believe it sticks, but the Eobard Thawne timeline has gotten so messy
Well,
and
this
so
Thawne
convoluted.
apparently was able to survive because he was outside the time stream when this
Hmm.
happened. Um, so he is the same one that has been in the comics. But yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely always messy with Thawne, but I love Thomas Wayne killing him, surprising him. Again, Thawne's always going to have the demise of his hubris, and he's taunting Barry, and Batman's like, well, when you're in a war, it's a good idea not to stay still.
yeah, it's really funny for a speedster too.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like
so
it's the way Eobard Thawne always loses.
so this thing is from the I think beginning, right? Before
Hmm.
before Barry changes anything, but it's a nice just I really love these type of art here. Just the hero right in the center. You got the city behind him. It's really nice.
Agreed.
And this is a nice shot of them talking about Barry's family and it being all of the speedsters. So I really like that. And then this is, of course, the chapter 1 page where you see all of our usual heroes before everything gets real corrupted by the Flashpoint. So something that stood out to me.
My
And when
question,
yeah,
my question is, you see those things, and they always have them. Every big DC moment has one of these. They're all running. What are they running to? Every
uh,
single one. You see that with
whatever
New
battle they're about to
Frontier.
head to. I mean, look at Cyborg
Yeah,
here, right? Cyborg's
Cyborg
just
is like, I am going to tear somebody's head off.
yeah. So they're running to something.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought was a cool parallel, I guess, right? This is when Barry does his own suit, right? Because he takes
Hmm.
I think he leaves the Reverse Flash one, and he decides he's gonna make his own. And I feel like this is a kind of a really good parallel drawing here of end of issue 4 when Reverse Flash says, "Look what you did," and he's standing in almost the same pose. Um, I really like that.
Foreshadowing. Hmm.
And then, of course, when he's going back home, and we kind of see, I think down here on the right is the new 52, Superman with no trunks here, and with
Yeah,
Superman
you
with
gotta get
trunks
those
in the
trunks,
left
man.
here.
You gotta
Yeah,
get those trunks. You gotta get those trunks.
but yeah, this is a really cool looking page as well.
Yeah, there's a lot there to digest.
My favorite cover, though, my favorite cover is this. I just love this cover of Reverse Flash holding up Flash, and he's got Batman by the cape. Issue 5. The cover is great. I really love that cover.
It's fantastic. Does anybody enjoy being evil more than Eobard Thawne?
No. What
I
I would
think that
also what I would also suggest is if people really like Reverse Flash, I think it's issue 8 of the Flash from the Jeff Johns run after Rebirth. It's part of the Road to Flashpoint. That issue of Flash is really good because it's all from Eobard Thawne's perspective, and you see him like how many times he makes the changes to his own life, that he wanted. You know, there's a time there's like a line in there where he's like, you know, like I had a brother, right? Like I grew up as a one of two children type thing. And then when his brother kind of messes up something, it goes back in time, and then it's like I was an only child, and just kind of like the changes Eobard is making to his own history when people are getting in the way, um, and him trying to make the ultimate, um, you know, best life for Eobard Thawne. It's just a really fun issue. Uh, you can read it on the DC app. It's Road to Flashpoint, but it's also in the Flash Rogues Reverse Flash issue that I have, like not issue, but trade paperback, where they have a lot of classic Reverse Flash stories. That is one of them, and it is a really, really fun one.
Anything Reverse Flash is always fun. The most sinister. I would argue that the Reverse Flash is as good of a character as the Joker. He is the Flash's version of that, and I don't think it gets better than that. I just don't. He's so sinister. He's so petty, and he always finds a way to have so much fun messing with Barry. It's just the stories are always great. When he is my favorite villain to hate.
Oh yeah, I mean he is like ultimate hater, and I think that's why he's so much fun. Joker doesn't even hate Batman, right? Like
Joker
Joker
loves Batman.
Joker loves Batman.
It
What I
is my
really
entire purpose.
Exactly. This character hates Barry so much, and he finally got to the point where he's like, I exist outside the time zone, which means now like I can finally kill you. But he goes on such a long monologue about it that it gives Thomas the chance to kill him. And it's just like he was so close to finally completing his mission and couldn't get it done. And I don't know. He's just such a. I love how much he's gloating too. Like, look what you did, and Barry is confused. He says, you did this. He's like, oh no, that's the best part. Like, you did this. You don't even remember, do you? And just how much he was kind of giving Barry so much crap about it is. I mean, Reverse Flash is definitely like a. I don't know. If you're gonna put Joker number one for villain, you maybe put Reverse Flash number two,
They're
and then
1A for me.
you put Lex up there too. I mean, those are like
Yep.
if you're looking DC villains, those are the main three.
You're not wrong. Not wrong at all. Reverse Flash is just if he didn't have so much hubris, the Flash never would win. The Flash literally wins because his big blind spot is how much he loves himself. And everybody Thawne, every single time he loses, it's because he couldn't see past his inevitability of winning. He just always thinks he's going to win. He always thinks he's better. He tells Barry, "You're an amateur. You change time like an amateur." And he's so messy. And he's like, "This is not how I would have done it." And I just, he's so masterful at changing history. In fact, Batman even tells in Flashpoint, Batman Thomas Wayne's like, "It sounds like you haven't tried, Barry. It sounds like you haven't tried to change the past." And why is he able to do it and you're not? And you know that's a really interesting thing, especially because we kind of learned that he already did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, Overall, a really great comic. I mean, this thing jumps up into my top comics. When we're talking about like big events or trade paperbacks, this is certainly certainly up there. But I mean, if you also read a lot of my list, it's a lot of Jeff Johns.
Hmm.
He does so many good events. I haven't read Blackest Night, but I want to because I love the Lanterns and I like Jeff Johns. So I really want to read that Green Lantern run leading up to Blackest Night as well because I'm sure it's probably really really good. But I think this might be his I don't know,
Magnum
magnus
opus.
opus. Yeah, I think so. I think this might be what he gets most remembered for at
Hmm.
some point. I mean, he's had very famous runs, but I think this, with how much of a life this is taken on by itself, it's got the animated film. It's featured in the Flash show. It's being loosely based on, the movie's loosely basing itself on it. So
It's the biggest Flash story there is. There's no Flash story bigger. In fact, one of the criticisms for the movie the whole time has been like, oh, they shouldn't have started with Flashpoint. Well, if the DCEU showed you anything, is don't save anything for future movies. Just do it because you never
yeah,
know.
you never know. You never know. And I think too, somebody made a good point when they were looking at numbers that were tracking and stuff, and they were like, "No way does Flash vs. Captain Cold make this much money.
You're not wrong.
No way."
Nobody knows Captain Cold outside of the fans who watched season one of The Flash. And that's not even, it's not even, well, season two, really. But look, one thing I want to say about Flashpoint before we stop talking about the comic is there's so many nuanced moments in this. I talked about this a little bit, but pizza. It all boiled down to pizza for the Shazam family. It's like I want pizza on Friday night, and if we don't save the world, nobody gets pizza. And it all boiled down to pizza. What a moment for like a family of superpowered kids. And then Element Girl. I made a joke about this earlier. I don't know if you caught it. It was just like, anybody want a juice box? Perfect.
Oh
Just
yeah.
perfect. Just every now and then, just does everybody want a juice box? The best running gag of Flashpoint. Loved it. It's fantastic. But there's so many little moments in here that they could have just wrote and written an action packed story with and not cared about the details. This could have been a Fast and the Furious kind of a movie of a comic book, and it wasn't. This
No, the
was
war the war doesn't really start till issue 4.
yeah.
The first
It
3 is set up for Barry and focused
hmm
on Barry and Thomas.
But man, once you get to the war, once you get to the war, it's like it's on. So it's so fantastic. It takes its time, and it's only 5 issues. It's just there's so many things, and I could wax poetic forever. I just want to make sure we touch on how well it is written. I will criticize Jeff Johns for some of the things that have gone on with the movie stuff, but the man knows comic books. He's a master. And this art is fantastic. And it is because I've told you, I don't think there's a ton of amazing Flash artists. And this might be the best Flash art.
Um I do like this. But what I've really liked too is I really have liked Scott Collins' art in the Flash too. He does the Citizen Cold one as well. I think he writes and does the art for the Citizen Cold stuff, and I really do like that art. It's a little bit more stylized, I guess, but um, I've really come around to liking the Scott Collins art style uh, as well. He wrote a few of the. I think he did a lot of the work on the Road to Flashpoint. Uh, I think he was part of the team for that, and like the um right after Rebirth. I think he was doing a lot of the art for that. So,
And
I
I like
think
that
I
stuff.
think I'd have to go. I think I'd have to go with. I don't know who I'd say is the best yet, though. It's so tough because I feel like I haven't read enough Flash yet to really know who my favorite artist is yet. But there's just certain panels that will catch me, and I'm like, "That's Flash, man." Like
Yep.
that's the Flash. And there's some panels with some artists that you're like, that doesn't really feel like Flash to me. But some of the art, like you nailed it though. Like this art is the Flash, right? Like
Yep.
this is the Flash. And there's some nice differences between when you're looking at Barry and when you're looking at Wally. Wally has his nose covered. Barry does not, right? So um Wally's is a little bit more scarlet, a little bit more darker red than the bright red of Barry Allen.
So what we learned is Barry's not going to wear a mask, but Wally will.
Yeah.
That was a bad joke, but yeah, that's actually interesting. I actually didn't notice the nose covering thing until you said that, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the art for a story like this, such a daunting task, because you got to be able to do the whole DC universe basically. You can't phone it in on any character, and there's so much background. One of the cool things about this is you can take your time on this and just get lost in the pages. You can get lost in the art of this book and just be like, you could take forever just going, oh my god, the
Hmm.
detail of all these different characters, all these memories coming in, and losing memories. It's so cool. Uh, yeah. Can you tell we like this book, guys?
Yeah, we could probably gush about it the whole time. Um, I think I just found another. Yeah, this is another panel. This is from Rebirth, but this again highlights the differences between the two suits. You got more of like the maroon
Yeah,
color
it's
with the
darker
nose
for
there for
Wally.
Wally. Yeah.
Yep, and the
Um,
Flash Ogre's a little different too. It's a different lightning bolt.
yeah, it's like two. It's like a
Mhm.
yeah, like a two-step one instead of the three. But yeah, so ultimately, if you haven't read Flashpoint, go read Flashpoint because we both really dug it, and I'm hoping to finish more of these tie-ins because, like I said, some of them are really fun. Some of them are not, some of them are not. Like you can
Uh,
tell when there's ones where I'm like, as I'm reading, I'll like touch the page and be like, "What page am I on out of this? Oh, I still got 10 pages." Like, damn.
that's
And then
kind of
there's
the
ones where I'm like
yeah.
flying through it.
That's kind of the death sign of a comic. Like if I read a comic like digitally, and I'm like, okay, how many more pages do I got? That's how I know if I like it or not. Because it's kind of like a movie. If you're looking at your phone, going, how long have I been in here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good sign of like, dude, there's something not clicking with you in the story. And sometimes with comics that happens. I think that happens in any medium.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, so I guess that'll wrap up our Flashpoint talk. I think we touched on most of it. Anything else we got to talk about for this?
Just go see The Flash. Support that movie. Support
Yeah,
that movie. I don't care about the Ezra Miller stuff. I don't want to hear it. Just go support that movie. A lot of things went into that. It's been a rocky road, and it'll be an incredible victory for the fan base if that has a huge opening. So go
and if it
support this
doesn't do
movie.
well, we're probably not getting any other Flash movies, even without Ezra. Like that,
Yep.
they'll
Yep.
they'll take the wrong lesson from it. They'll say Flash is not a character for the film, then, and
And
I think that's wrong.
right. And you know what? I know Ezra Miller's got had his issues. But I'm hoping because everything I'm hearing about this, he's been fantastic in this. I'm hoping this can be the thing that saves his life and his career. Um, his life much more important than his career, obviously. But I really hope he can have a Robert Downey Jr. like bounce back and be a cornerstone piece of the DC universe. Because look, you can if you want another Flash, you can always get a Wally West in there. You don't have
Yeah,
to get rid
yeah,
of Ezra Miller, even if he is not the Flash you go with. That's a beautiful thing about this. So if you care about the Flash, it's not about Ezra Miller. It's about look, a DCU that doesn't have the Flash, not a DCU I want.
yeah, yeah. No, if the movie doesn't do well, he'd probably just be in Justice League movies or
And you're gonna get
something.
Michael
Yeah,
Shannon as General Zod. Michael Keaton as Batman. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Sasha Kaya as Supergirl. You you don't support this movie. I don't know what to tell you. Andy Muschietti is a proven director. Uh, Knocked it out of the park with the It movies. If you don't feel inspired to go see this movie, I don't know what to tell you. I just go support it. Just please support this movie. I am so tired of I don't know or oh, superhero movie fatigue or DC movie. I'll only go to the Marvel movies. Well, you know what? If you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, you have no excuse. You're down for anything. Let's go. You saw Thor: Love and Thunder. You're down for anything. Let's go. Go see the movie. Go see it. Okay, I'm done.
Alrighty, you heard Chris there. I will second most of that. Go see this movie if you're a Flash fan or a fan of DC heroes, because I think it's gonna be really good. So 2 weeks away. So we will be covering that in 2 weeks. Um, we'll find something to talk about next week, I guess. But as of now, um, we are going to wrap up this. But if you want to give us any feedback, contact us, Elseworlds DC Fan on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and reach us there. But thank you all for watching and listening. We'll catch you next week.